What's up, guys, and welcome back to this week's episode of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for the support and the love on last week's episode. Obviously, it was the last episode of Guess Who for 2024, and I got beat. Shame. And I'm joined by the man who beat me, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Harry, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Good win last week. So
Yeah. This week I want to talk about the changes Spurs have made. Like today, as we're recording this on Monday, in terms of
the logo,
the badge, and a few tweaks like that, and maybe a little bit of an overreaction from some certain people, including myself. But talk about our thoughts and feelings of that. We'll talk a little bit about the City game, and then obviously it's November, it's Men's Mental Health Month, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, and our own personal struggles and things like that. You guys are going to have to bear with me today. I've got no energy at all. Don't ask why. It's a long story, but I've been chasing the phone up and down trains. That's all you need to know. And I'm still slightly tipsy from the drinks I had, the cocktails I had about 5 hours ago. So, lightweight and all that. Anyway, so moving on. So if you guys haven't seen, as of about 2 o'clock, I want to say, on the 18th, so Tuesday as you're watching this, Monday as you're watching this, Spurs announced that they're changing the logo. So commercially, the logo will not have the Tottenham Hotspur at the bottom of it. And for things like kits and certain advertisements, the logo, rather than having the beach ball outline, as you can see for those that are guys on YouTube, but on my shirt, the beach ball outline with a little hollow bit in the top of the neck of the cockerel, that will all just be completely filled in, and that will all be completely one unit. Now, initially, I actually read it and thought that we were going to the filled-in cockerel everywhere, which is why I kicked off a bit on Twitter. When I actually bothered to fucking read it properly, I realised actually the main change was just getting rid of the words Tottenham Hotspur under the logo, which doesn't actually appear anywhere very often now. They're changing the font ever so slightly, which I'm actually not a fan of the Spurs font anyway. I never ever get it on kits. I always get Premier League font if I get kits, so... for me, I actually think that's a positive change. And then commercially, things like billboards, advertisement boards, posters, things like that, the cockerel will be all filled in. Now, like I say, initially I thought it was a cockerel being filled in everywhere, at which point I kicked off massively. But I actually don't think the change in terms of the Tottenham Hotspur wording going, you only ever really see that on like things like Wikipedia or older, more outdated photos that have a Spurs logo in it. Most of the time it is literally just a cockerel now anyway. So I don't think that's a massive loss. They've also redone the THFC overlay, which is one of my favourite emblems that we have. And I actually really like the change they've made, along with the font change. So I'm actually going to change my opinion slightly on what I overreacted to on Twitter when I first saw it. And I actually don't think it's that bad of a change, if I'm being honest. I just hope it doesn't go any more commercial on that. Harry, what are your thoughts?
Well, number one, I think they have better things to do than changing the logo, which actually
very valid point.
On the Instagram page, because I was like, just stop messing around with marketing stuff and get on with the football. But to me, I'm not bothered about the whole changing of the shape and stuff. I'm more bothered about the removing the Tottenham Hotspur and I have my own opinions on this. For me, it's like they're trying to take away the football from the club. I know it sounds really weird, but it's like, I don't agree with it, because it's like the more we do, this NFL stuff that, we do, the concerts we do, it's not really we're basically an entertainment centre. That's what it comes across like. So when taking away the Tottenham Hotspur from the logo, it's like you're trying to rebrand it in the sense of that it's not football, or not as much as it was before. That's how I saw it, and that's why I didn't really like it. The whole changing of the font, and all this minuscule stuff, which doesn't, affect my life that much. It's more just taking away the Tottenham Hotspur from it. I was really annoyed with that. I was like, what are you doing? Because in almost I think every single logo we've had Tottenham Hotspur in it.
See, that's where I'm going to give you a counterpoint. Over 2/3 of the Tottenham Hotspur logos over the years don't have Tottenham Hotspur on it. It is just a cockerel of some form.
But then if you look at even the older ones, there's THFC on it as well.
But if I go back to past Spurs logos,
because even
that was my initial reaction. And actually, if you look at the list, so 1921 to 51, nothing. 1951 to 67, nothing. 67 to 71, nothing. Tottenham Hotspur came in from 72 to 81, went from 73 to 81. Sorry, then it was swapped again. Then it was in from 1983 up until 1989. Then we had the THFC
Yeah, that's what I remember.
in for 3. And then we had the Tottenham Hotspur for 2. So actually, if we're talking about going back to our original roots, the very original logos didn't have the Tottenham Hotspur as part of it. So
but at the same time, nowadays you have to understand the logo, like you mentioned yourself, is like everywhere. I'd rather personally that Tottenham Hotspur was with it, because if I'm just a random person in, I don't know, another country, right, and I just see a logo, I'll be like, well, whose logo is this? It's just a cockerel. It doesn't have a name on it, and you can associate it with. And I think it's part of their grand master plan to make it into like non-football. I know it sounds really.
I would say I haven't quite seen enough yet to go to that extreme. Don't get me wrong. I do have concerns. I do actually echo those concerns, and I do think that there is a possibility that could be the direction it goes.
Now we're doing NFL, like I said. We have NFL changing rooms, which I'm sure he went on the tour.
Yeah,
I spent like 5 minutes in there, walked out. Well, not even 5 minutes. I think went in the
I didn't even walk in the second time I did it.
You guys, oh, this is the NFL. I walked in and I walked back out. And then you have, all these other concerts we have. I think Adele's meant to be coming soon. Like, what I'm saying is, it doesn't feel like we knocked down White Hart Lane, the old White Hart Lane. Like, it's a football stadium. Like, they're trying to make it into something.
Okay, my only counterpoint to that is Liverpool, and I know there was uproar from Liverpool fans, but Liverpool went just to the Liverbird in the summer last year because it was easier for graphical representation. Now the Liverbird. So the way Liverpool fans have molded into the change is that the Liverbird is so iconic by itself that it doesn't need to be represented with LFC or Liverpool Football Club because the emblem stands to reason in its own. I think the Spurs logo, if you look like my dressing gown's in front of me now, that's not got Tottenham Hotspur on it. You've got 2 shirts by me, not Tottenham Hotspur on it. Another shirt I'm wearing, not Tottenham Hotspur on it. I can pick up another T-shirt, no Tottenham Hotspur, another T-shirt, no. But even again, if I look at my tour emblem, one of them that has a Spurs logo on it has Tottenham Hotspur on it. The other one didn't. So I think it stands to reason that the logo itself in that capacity stands enough by itself. I would completely agree with you if the field logo was becoming on everything. But so long as the logo with the extra detail that represents Tottenham Hotspur in a standalone self, I think if you were to show 10,000 football fans from various levels of football up and down the country of all ages, from 12 upwards, the Tottenham Hotspur logo without the Tottenham Hotspur wording, I would hazard a guess that 85 to 95% of people will know that without the words Tottenham Hotspur underneath it. And that shows the weight it holds by itself.
That's not my argument, though. I'm agreeing with that completely. I'm talking about, say, if you were someone who was in, I don't know, Brazil or something, or another country, never heard of Tottenham Hotspur. Like, they were, like, we have these new fans abroad and stuff like that, right? And they just saw a logo just on the street. Yeah. They'll be like, what's this? Like, as in... And the problem with Tottenham is compared to Liverpool. Liverpool is a legacy club, right? They're like Man United. So for them to do that, it's not actually a big deal. Plus, Liverpool have won countless trophies over the past few years. So if people don't know Liverpool won the title, or don't know Liverpool Football Club because they're such a huge global brand like Man United, then I'd be quite surprised with Tottenham. I know we think we're a big club, but like, even from a marketing standpoint, it doesn't even make sense to me. Like, I'm like, and also,
but the only reason I would say is, do you not think maybe then Daniel Levy's trying to have I'm not even going to mention Levy, but do you not think the marketing team per se are trying to have it where the logo is represented and identified in its natural self without needing it holds? Okay, let me ask you this question: if you have a logo, you have Manchester United's logo, and you hollow out the words, right, and you just have the outer logo and the colours, 95% of people will be able to identify that logo. If you had, I don't know, West Ham, and you took out the eyes, you took out the words, people would look at that logo and they'd be able to identify it from the colours. They'd be able to take a guess from the shape of the logo, whatever. I think because Tottenham's logo is such an iconic shape and it's such a iconic layout that if
Like
you were
with
to
you
blur
and
it,
fans
okay, let me ask you this question: if you blurred the Spurs logo, so you could just about make the shape, I think the majority of football fans are going to know what that is anyway. I think it stands to reason by itself more than we give it credit for.
I disagree. Actually, I'll tell you why. Because if we won the Champions League final, for example, we won the league 10, 15, whatever it was, 2017, 2016, whatever those years, I think people would know Tottenham by the logo. But the problem is, I know it sounds counterproductive, but if we don't, I hate to say this word, and you're probably going to ruffle a few feathers, but compared to Liverpool and United, we have less football heritage. So what I'm saying
I
is,
wouldn't disagree with that.
so like for Liverpool to do it, it's not actually a big deal because everyone knows what bloody Liverpool is. I've found people in Cyprus, fair of them support Liverpool. Like I had a family friend who supported Liverpool. There were loads of my cousins, not exactly my cousins, but people in Cyprus support Liverpool and United. They were like, I'm a Liverpool fan, I'm a United fan.
But I think the Premier League, though.
But the problem is with Tottenham is because we didn't, like I said, if we won the Champions League final, I know it sounds really daft. I know
what you mean. It spreads the brand out more. The only counterpoint I'd have to that, though, is I think the Premier League as a whole is marketed so much abroad now that all the teams are covered, all the teams are knowledgeable, all the teams are available, all the logos are represented. If we were having this conversation 20 years ago, I'd completely agree with you. But because the Premier League is pushed in such a global way now in America, in Brazil, Argentina, like so many countries, Australia, because the Premier League as a collective is pushed so far away. I mean, I've seen clips of people in Australia singing "What Do We Think of Tottenham" at social events.
But then we have got Ange though, so I think.
All right, no, but I'm talking. This was before Ange.
All right.
So, you see sometimes things like Glastonbury and stuff like that, where someone will go and say, "Well, what do we think of Tottenham?" And there's like 60,000 people or whatever. So I feel like Tottenham as a whole are reputable enough now compared to where they were 20 years ago to make that change. And it's not massive, but I think we are just enough into that bracket now as a global brand. I hate using that term, but as a global brand, it's the same thing for Liverpool, same thing for Man United, same thing for City, same thing for Chelsea. Spurs are wide enough now as a global brand that we can afford to make that change. If we were making that change 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I'd be 100% agreeing with you. But I think we've made that change, unfortunately for Spurs fans, and I don't agree with it being halfway through a season, but I think we've made that change probably about the right time, if I'm being honest.
I hate to bring him up, but partly because of Son, and we had Dempsey from America doing that global stuff in America.
Not just that as well, but you look at players like Paulinho is known for being a Spurs legend, plays obviously playing non-league now. We've got so many people that so many players and so much repertoire, and you've got players like Bentancur, obviously Uruguayan international. I think Spurs are at the point where they have enough international players. I don't even want to talk about it, to be honest. I might mention it briefly. We'll see how long everything else takes. But I think as a global brand, Spurs are just in that bracket now. We're not at the Liverpool, Man United, Real Madrid level, but I could give you the Barcelona logo without Barcelona, and you'd know who it is. I can give you the Real Madrid logo without any text, and you know it is. Liverpool, Man United. But I feel like 95, if I actually go through the Premier League table, right, and you were to ask international fans who the majority of Premier League clubs were, if you showed them Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Villa, Tottenham, Bournemouth, Man United, West Ham, Everton, Palace, Wolves, Southampton, I think all of those clubs could be guessed if their logos were hollowed out. So, because I think there is enough pushing and enough planning and enough exploitation, if you like, of the Premier League clubs that they're not before for foreign leagues. Their Premier League clubs would be like this. Now they're like this. They're a lot closer. They're a lot more exposed. That's what I'm looking for. The exposure for English clubs abroad is to such a high degree now that you'll see people in American bars watching Brighton versus Villa. You would never have had that 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there has been enough, literally just. Like I say, if this would have been 5-10 years ago, I'd have completely agree with you. But I think Spurs as a profile have grown so much, excluding the stuff off the pitch. Talking about just on the pitch in terms of the kinds of teams we've played, the kind of games we've played, some of the iconic moments we've had. When me and Michael went to London for the AZ game, we were talking to two AZ Alkmaar fans on the Thames link on the way to London, and they were talking about that they could name most of that Spurs squad that played against Ajax in that game. Now if that had been 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have had that.
But most of the Dutch fans probably would have watched that game, let's be honest.
No, but what I'm saying, to be at the level where they knew the players that were starting for Spurs and they could give you more than just their name or their shirt number shows that there's enough exposure. And bearing in mind, that was a season where we weren't particularly great.
We weren't great.
Exactly. So the fact that people could tell you, I know Lucas Moura played, Ericsson played, Dele Alli played, Sissoko played, Llorente played, this player played, that player played. The fact that a foreign fan who doesn't follow English football can tell me that says to me that Spurs are in that. I know you don't like accepting it because it shows that the global branding push for the financial gain has worked. And we've always said, Levy, in terms of outside of football business, is brilliant. When it comes to prioritising the football, that's where his flaws are. Yeah. Just talking, purely ignoring the football side for a second, because this was a brand change, right? Talking about it from a brand point of view, I think he's done it at the exact right time. I think if Adidas got rid of the letters under Adidas, everyone would know who it is. I think Spurs were at that point now where we could make that change. That being said, I'm a little bit disappointed because I said this about 2 or 3 years ago, that if we ever changed our logo, I wanted to go back slightly to kind of what we've got now, but with the THFC in the ball rather than the ball.
The THFC's, it's this,
kind of having it across with you remember the one we had with the yellow ribbon at the bottom?
Yeah.
I kind of wanted a cross between what we've got now and that, if we ever changed it again. To be fair, it's such a minute change. And people making all the memes about the Japanese flag changing and it's like a slight to the red or whatever. You can laugh and joke about it. I'm honest, I don't think it's going to make a difference to football side of things. I don't think it's going to make a difference.
It's more the fact that the club is focused on non-football matters more.
But what you got to remember is there's like 20, 30, 40 different departments in Spurs. You'll have a financial side, you'll have a staff side, you'll have a HR side, and one of those departments will be marketing and research. And the club will have enough employees you don't have the same 6 employees working across 15 departments and for 6 months you're going to prioritise marketing, right? You're going to stop prioritising marketing at all, and now you're going to move on to prioritising catering.
It's not that. It's not them. I don't blame the actual people in the club. If anyone in the club listens to this or watches, I'm not blaming you guys. It's not your fault. It's just the club always announces non-footballing things all the time, and this for me. I know people might argue it's footballing.
It just feels like another one that's a non-football priority.
Why are we doing this? Where's the priority in the club?
Yeah,
that's the problem.
I think. Do you know another reason why I think we've changed it? I read a long article the other day about things football clubs make, changes football clubs make before they sell.
Oh, really?
And one of those things is
a logo.
No, one of those things is they make as many profitable market changes as possible so they can inflate the cost of the club to get as much exposure as possible.
That's why we let's say you're this summer, because they want to cut investment.
Yeah. So like the wage bill, they've carved that down because then that increases the value of the club because you've got a bigger gap that you can afford to spend yourself when you buy the club. And the marketing department is one of those things. I also think if you look at the kits that we've been linked with for next year, I also think it's a part change to do with that and a part change to do with the adaptability for kits going forward. But yeah, that's kind of right now. I don't think it's a negative and I don't think it's a positive. It remains to be seen the impact. I think it'll be minimal for fans. If the marketing department think it's a good idea, it's not like we've changed the logo and got a crest around it permanently, or we put it in a circle or whatever the fuck. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? It could be worse. I don't know what Leeds did with the thumbs up badge from like years ago. Do you remember the guy in the shirt with like the fist badge and everyone's like, what the fuck is that? And then they reverted back. So it could be worse. At the end of the day, it is what it is, but we just want to talk about it. I think I'm kind of neutral, really, unless it causes any massive swings. We'll talk very briefly about the Bentancur ban, and then we'll go to the C game. Bentancur is banned for the next 7 games, £100,000 fine, and be given an education course based on his comments about all South Korean people looking the same. Now, that might be a good joke down the pub, but unfortunately, making that joke on a public platform where everyone can see it it's not acceptable anyway, but making that post where everyone can see it is only going to get you into shit. I personally don't think the FA should have any jurisdiction over things that happen on international duty, but that, excuse me, but that being said, you're representing your club and you're representing the league you play in and you're representing yourself wherever you are. And unfortunately, in the footballing world, you've got eyes on you at all times. I think the ban impacts the team, which is the thing I'm most disappointed about. Did he deserve a punishment? Yes. Did he deserve more than a fine? I'd probably argue yes. Is it frustrating because the whole Argentinian team was chanting racist shit and got away with it? Yes. But let it be a lesson to him that keep your racist comments to yourself. Or alternatively, don't have them in the first place. But if you are going to have them, then keep them to your fucking self. Because they don't have a place in society. I think that's a fair assessment. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think the problem is that, like you said, a joke down the pub is fine. Like, if it was him and someone by themselves or something, or even with a few lads, it'll probably be all right. But because he said it on live TV, basically, and because, social media nowadays, ironically, we did do a stream about this when it happened. And I said, personally, if someone saying something about Greeks, I wouldn't take offense to it if he said it in the tone he said it. Because the tone he said it, if I'm being honest, didn't come across as offensive, personally. It's just my opinion. But because he's on live TV and he's a public figure, and because obviously cancel culture and you're a public figure, at the end of the day, people watching you, like even younger kids and whatever, they will
you
take
have to set an example no matter what, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, like even if you think it's a joke, which, like I said, for me, I didn't.
Do you think that if he'd have said it, stood next to Son, and Son had laughed and joked and hugged him, that it would have been deemed acceptable at that point?
Yeah, because people have understood the tone. I think I understood the tone, but that's because me and my friends make racist jokes all the time. So for me, it's like,
thanks for announcing that on the podcast, Harry.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. But anyway, so for me, it's like I took it as a joke. I didn't think he was being offensive or anything, and the tone wasn't like that way. I from what I saw in the video. But at the end of the day, because he's a footballer, because he said it on a public domain, like on video and stuff, it was always going to happen because they have to reprimand public figures.
Yeah,
to stop it filtering down into like younger players and etc. etc. It's just how it is. It's just how it is. And the ban was coming anyway, so.
Yeah. Do you think we've spoken a lot about Basuma and Bentancur and the competition between the two and how Basuma's levels have pretty much maintained rather than dropped, which we were worried 8-10 weeks ago that they were going to drop. They've actually maintained, and we said that's been because of the healthy competition, and Basuma's come in for 45 minutes and given a 90-minute performance in 45 minutes. Do you think this is a real opportunity for him to prove to the manager now that actually, yes, I've been giving you 90 minutes worth of performances in 45 minutes. This is why I've been doing that. I can really grab that by the scruff of the neck. And I do worry about games like Liverpool and Chelsea, but I think as a general, do you think Basuma has a real opportunity here now to cement that spot as his own again going into the turn of the year? Or do you think this is an opportunity for someone like Gray to go, well, okay, let's say Basuma plays 60 minutes and Archie Graves comes into midfield. Actually, I can prove to you why you need to register Spence as a backup right back in January and play me back in the middle of the Europa League. Do you think that gives both of those players a real drive and a burning opportunity to go, I've got 7 weeks now, 7 weeks now, to go, I can really prove to the manager why the spot deserves to be mine?
See, the problem is that we mentioned Bentancur and Basuma's competition. Now, Basuma by default, because knowing Ange, he will be the starting number 6, which isn't really number 6 because he was an 8 at Brighton. But anyways, he'll be playing that position over Bentancur on the next ever so games. Now, the issue is that number 1, is Ange going to rest him as much as we think? Number 2, I worry about his consistency as a whole because obviously last season, the first 10 games he was unbelievable. Then he just completely fell off. We passed 11 game mark now. And and also just he might get lazy because Basuma comes across, in my opinion, that kind of player. I think last season he
Once
did
the
get like,
position's nailed down for him, all of a sudden it's.
take
But
liberties at the back and all this crap. That's what worries me. As for Gray,
I think
yes,
he has a
on
real opportunity now.
paper, yes. But the problem is Ange's playing for like, what, 5 minutes in that position so far this
But
season?
I think now Andrew's going to be forced to do that. I think because he's
My
not going to
worry
play.
is
He
he
can't
might,
play Basuma the way Basuma plays and the way our midfield plays. He cannot play Basuma for 180 minutes a week. He can't do it.
he can't. But at the same time, he obviously, what was it? His backup was Basuma, Bergval, and Madison. Let's say on paper,
Yeah.
he might just play, say, Bergval more minutes. He might instead. I don't know. Like I worry
No,
about
but
it.
what I'm saying to you is we still need to have a slightly deeper midfielder, and if it's not going to be Basuma, the next
The
option is
issue is though,
Gray.
they play Gray in midfield in the Europa League. Who are you playing at right back at that point?
But this is
Because
what I'm
tomorrow,
saying. I would. This is
tomorrow
where. But this is where I think Gray has a real opportunity because if you let's say you play Basuma in midfield in the Europa League and you play Gray at right back and Gray plays 90 minutes at right back and Basuma plays 90 minutes in midfield, then when it comes to the weekend, you're gonna have two players that have played the same amount of minutes and a right back that can play because Spencer's come back from injury. So you put Spencer in the right back, you play Basuma for 60 minutes, and you play Gray for 30 minutes. He's not going to be able to play. I don't see Gray starting 90 minutes at right back at the weekends and then Basuma 90 minutes in the right back in the week and 90 minutes and centre mid at the weekend. I don't see Basuma playing 180 minutes a week.
I'm not saying, but then at the same time, Basuma has played less minutes this season. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do because we have.
Okay, let's say
Europa
that.
League coming up. We actually have got some tough games like Roma at home, Rangers away, which I don't think will be easy.
No, I don't think so. Okay, but let me put this to you then. Let's say he's put in a position where he's forced to rotate.
Yeah, who's he going to put in there?
Do you think? Let's say he's forced to rotate, and it is between Basuma and Gray, which I think it will be personally. Do you think Gray has because he played, and I know we said he struggled through a lack of pace at right back. When he played that ball for the goal in the Europa League, was it the last game we played where he lofted it over the top? Yeah, when we played away and he lofted it over to the top and then it was squared to Will Lancashire. It was an incredible ball. And we've seen when he's been central, he's played some really good passes. He's had some good energy. He's not afraid to get stuck in. He's a controlled aggressive. Do you think he has a real opportunity to go, actually, Ange, you bought me for a reason. I'm going to prove to you why this is where I want to play, not just at the club, not just in a Tottenham shirt, but in that position, and really give Ange a headache for next season. Well, actually, Basuma's got 2 years left on his contract. Bentancur's probably got 2 years left on his contract. This is a guess, but it's in and around that. Gray, who's young, promising, has done well. He's not blown the water away, but he's not been playing in the position that I believe he should be playing in. But he's still been solid. He's still been a solid squad player. He's still worked his arse off. He's still been effective in key moments. Do you think it gives someone like that a real opportunity to go, I'm nailing down this centre midfield spot for as long as I possibly can? Because Spurs are looking at Cardoso in the summer, the guy we did that dodgy Batiste deal with, which I'm convinced is some sort of money laundering scheme. If Spurs are looking at a midfielder like that, and Gray's going, well, bruh, I'm literally right here. I'm going to prove to you why you don't need someone. But Spurs still feel that player is good enough and has got the plaudits to be worth signing anyway. Then we can look at going, actually, Basuma, you're going to be further forward rotation. Madison, if you're not playing well and Bergval is, then you can go. Or Bergval, right, we've got Madison and Kuzeski, we've got Sarr and Basuma, we've got Gray, Bentancur and Cardoso, for example, if we sign him, I believe that's his name. Okay, Bergval, you're going to go on loan. Do you think Gray could actually give us more opportunities to grow that midfield in the summer if he makes that spot? If he can prove that he deserves that spot, do you not feel?
My reservations with Gray is he hasn't really played against like Premier League level opposition yet, like on a consistent basis. He's played. I know he plays this in the cup, but I'm not going to debate with you about that because I don't believe it was their full team. They played like 2 or 3 players that were in their first team. And they played Foden up front, who wasn't really a striker, and like they rested a lot of players that day. And Pep didn't really take it seriously. So I don't think that was like a game to measure his level on. Same with Galatasaray, yes and no. I don't think he played that well that game. He was out of position, as some people may argue, but he did play majority of the time at right back at Leeds. Like for me, I have massive reservations with Gray because he's 18. Yeah, he might become better, but to chuck him into a Premier League and expect him to do it straight away is a big ask. And the other option thing is that maybe people haven't thought about, I guess, when you pose the question to me is how much pressure is Ange on to try and chuck in a youngster to try and save himself? Like, you don't really know. Would he do some really weird stuff like some people want to put Ramirez at 6?
Not a chance.
But like, you know what I'm trying to say, right? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what he does, because whether he just puts Bergvall there just because he's more of a midfielder, or whether he moves Gray into there, I don't know, because Gray's, somewhat, because he hasn't really used Spence that much either. Like, it's a bit weird. But so it's all done.
Spence has been injured, to be fair. That's why.
I know, but even in like when I think. What was it? What game was it?
He was playing Spence a lot. Before Spence got injured, he was rotating Spence and Udogie a lot. So I think Gray is definitely a Europa League level player already. I'd say he's a comfortable Europa League player, is what I would say.
The level apart from Galatasaray, which we got battered, let's be honest. He hasn't really played anyone in the Europa League that good anyway. But
this is what I'm saying to you. They're the level of the teams in the Europa League. So what I'm saying to you is I think he's a consistent Europa League player. To prove he is a Champions League player, we need to see him in the correct position, and we need to see him week in, week out in the Premier League, or at least...
But then,
at least 60 minutes a week in the Premier League.
In that narrative, the manager has to come out and say, rather than contradicting himself every 5 minutes, and say, this is a project, this is going to take time. But he keeps saying, I always think in things myself. Because what I'm saying is, in playing Gray, by doing that decision, right, you're basically telling people we're going to have to wait another 3 years, basically. I'm just saying, if he moves more senior players into there, I would take it as though he's taking it more like, I need to do something now. But if he puts Gray in, I'm fine. Like, it's fine. If we have injuries, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with it. Maybe we could.
But your argument is if he puts,
he is generational. What everyone keeps banging on about. Like, we could see whether he does it or not. Like, I'm curious myself. Yeah? But it's not my job on the line. It's Ange's, and also it's like, well, if you by doing that decision, you're telling us that we are going to have to wait even longer. But then again, you could argue.
Let me ask you a question though.
Bergvall, but then Bergvall's a next in line midfielder. You could argue, because unless he puts Maddison in, I don't know.
Let me ask you a question though. What age did Michael Carrick break through at Spurs?
Like 22, 23.
Because I can't remember. If we're talking about
21, I think 21.
If we're talking about Gray being 3 or 4 years younger than when Michael Carrick became a consistent Spurs player, he's got a lot more time on his side. I think what he's shown us so far is he's at least a top 6 squad player at minimum. And I think once he has a consistent run of form and he's playing around the right team around him, I think, like, if it was me right now going into City away,
I'm not playing Gray.
I would play Gray, Basuma, Kulusevski as the midfield three. I think Basuma has to play, obviously. Basuma, Sarr, and Kulusevski, that's what I would do. Okay, that's a shout. Okay, but that's I feel like a real opportunity then, because if you get to the 60th, 65th minute, I don't think he will, because I think Sarr, his physical presence in terms of his energy and his athleticism.
I know, I'm just saying, that's what he could do. I'm not saying, like, everyone just thinks he's going to play Gray, but if you look at the record of what he's done with Gray so far,
it would suggest that it's going to be Basuma and Sarr. It would suggest
he won't play Gray in City. Like, forget it. Like if that happens, I'll literally go mad. But like for me, it's just with Gray. It's again, we bought a player with potential, and now we're like, oh, we want to see him play. But then the manager says when he's always doing things in the second season. What I'm saying is the manager. I hate to say it this way. The manager put pressure on himself by saying some of the things he said. Honestly, I'd be more on board with him. And I'm saying this like...
if he was just a bit more honest. Okay, let me ask you a question.
Guys, it's going to take 2 or 3 years. We're building for the future. This is why we're buying these young players. Because the problem with Spurs, there's no transparency,
No.
But for me, it comes across as like he accepted the players, yes or no, I don't know.
He's saying he wants the players, but he's also saying he wants to win now. and the players right this second aren't showing that they're quite ready to win now.
And also, the transfer activity doesn't reflect that he wants to win now. But then he will tell us he wants to win now, and then a week later, this really pissed me off the other week. I think it was like a month ago. He goes the week after he said, "I openly thought things in my second season. Oh, I lost my first 2 games at Celtic. What some nonsense."
Yeah.
And then a week later, we lose a game. He goes, "Well, I've only been here 15 months." Well, like, hold on.
But bear in mind,
I'd rather he said to us from day one, this is day one of the season or day 2 or whatever time last thing when we started talking about the title. I was like, "You're bonkers, mate." But I'm saying, like, because everyone said we're in a rebuild. The problem is that I'd be on board with a rebuild if he was playing. Say, we did the 1-2 rebuilds I remember were under Martin Jol, and I'm going to refer to that one because that's where I believe we're as a club. He played players like Reto Ziegler, who was 18 on his debut. He gave him a debut against Arsenal.
Yeah.
Played players like Callum Davenport, players like Noe Pamaros. Like, we were churning up players, turnovering players a lot under Martin Jol. People probably forget this. But at the same time, he brings someone like Naybet, and because King was quite young at the time. So Naybet was a massive influence on Ledley King. He came from Deportivo. He was like 34. And then he put in Edgar Davids the season after, who was a big influence on like Carrick and players like that. So and Genius, because Carrick and Genius I think were like 21 each. But from the Spurs squad is the only first team player we signed is Solanke, and we've kept the same 11 in the Premier League pretty much every time. With Jol and this is why I give a lot of credit to Martin Jol in some respects, because he was given even less money than this guy, and he took us to 5th, and really should have finished 4th above Arsenal that season. And he took us back to Europe. But he had players on free transfers. We were signing young players, but that's what the club told us they were doing. They told us we're doing like a reset, because they got rid of all the players from like the early 2000s and the late 90s, like Tarico, players like that you probably never heard of. Jamie Redknapp was at Spurs for a while. He's old. So that back in 04, we still had a lot of players like that at the club. Tarico, Redknapp, older players. They said they were going to get rid of them. We brought in Frank Arneson, who was the director of football, who was brilliant. He went to Chelsea later on, unfortunately. But he was working with Martin Jol because Santini walked. And Jol and Arneson actually had a really good relationship because they both worked in Dutch football. He was at PSV before Arneson. And what they did, they even told us this, we're going to like rebuild for the future. And they told us this. They was very transparent. And then they did do that because, like I said, Joel gave a lot of debuts to young players, including Aaron Lennon, of course, later on. He was doing it. Problem with ANGE'S, he sounds to wait to take time, but then his team selections aren't really reflecting that because he isn't playing players like Archie Gray or Bergvall, say, playing regular football in the Premier League or giving them debuts and stuff. He did that with Odegaard, to be fair. That's probably one player. But what I'm saying is, it's almost like he's saying, I want to win now, but then you guys have to be patient for the future. But then I want to win now.
Okay, so based on what you've said, and I don't disagree that there's definitely a lack of consistency in terms of what he's saying versus what he's doing. However, the way I kind of look at it is this. He's saying, I want to win now because I think he knows how desperate Tottenham fans are to win. And what he doesn't want to do is come in and make excuses for why we're not winning now and actually make Spurs fans feel like he's not serious about winning. So he's keeping that winning mentality of, I'm going to put serious 11s out. I'm going to go for every game. I'm going to go gun-ho. We're going to go create chances. We're going to try and score goals. We're going to entertain. We're going to score. We're going to get 3 points each time as best as possible. And we're going to compete for trophies. That's what he's saying on the face of it. That's fine. But I think on the other half of it, he's saying, well, actually, you're asking me to do Mission Impossible. No one's done it since 2008, and that was one day Ramos. No one's done it for that long. So you're asking me to do Mission Impossible. Yes, I want to win now, and yes, I'm going to put every team lineup out to win now, but understand that where the squad is at, the squad isn't ready to win now. I will put out the best 11 possible to win now, but I understand, and he said it after the Palace game, understand there's going to be hiccups, understand there's going to be bumps in the road, and it's about how you recover from them, number one. And number two, he is still learning a lot about his players. He is still learning a lot about the mentality of certain players, and can certain players drag a team up in key moments? Are certain players, you look at Declan Rice, who played with a broken toe against Chelsea. Are there enough characters in that Spurs squad in key areas to pull them up? And we had a long conversation before the international break about Romero, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's sold in the summer. Because I think that's a key position that Ange can bring in his own character in. And I mean, Joe Hart said it actually in an interview, and he was talking about learning how to be a ball-playing goalkeeper under Ange compared to the kind of goalkeeper he was at City and at Spurs and Birmingham and places like that. And he was saying that he learned so much more of an understanding about the game and his role. And that's a player who's, approaching 40. So I think Ange is trying to keep the fans on board by saying that I do want to win. My ultimate goal is to win. I'm not going to start with the Conte making excuses or I didn't have enough money, whatever. And I'm not going to be that person who's going to tell you that it's going to take 10 years to win. It's going to take you whatever to win. I don't want to make excuses. I want to win now. But right now, these are all, I want to build an ice sculpture. But right now I've got a spade, I've got an ice maker, and I've got some water. So I need to get the right spade, and I need to get a chisel, and I need to get a hammer, and I need to get a bit more water, and I need to learn how to chip away at this type of ice. Is it a smooth edge bit? Is it a rough edge bit? Quite an appropriate metaphor for this time of year, actually. And once he's figured that out, and he's got the tools, then the actual chipping away process is literally bam, 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 bam. And that's where you see things like...
The problem is with that is that the way you say it and the way I say it, I would say it, right, is very different to the way he says it, because it's like he comes across as very like arrogant about it. Oh, I'm this and that, I'm this. But what I'm saying is I'd be more on board with him. This is why I was on board to say I'm like mine, Yo or Redknapp, because they were a lot more humble, a lot more... what's the word? Like the way he says it's like I'm the best, blah blah blah.
But I think the reason he's trying to put that persona across is, and it's not for the right, it's for the right reasons, but it's towards the wrong people. He's trying to put that persona across to prove to Spurs fans that he deserved the job in the first place. Because I think there is a small part of him that doesn't believe he deserved that job, and the job felt a bit too good to be true.
Not mine.
No, but I think, and I think. He's trying to overcompensate for that by trying to over-convince Spurs fans. All he needs to say to us is, look, give me your arm and let's go together.
That's the best take I've had, and I'm going to use that later on later in the week. Thanks. The saying, like, he's kind of on my concept by saying this. So do you think, I hate to put it this way, do you think he's insecure about it then?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think some people talk about his responses that are a bit blunt and a bit sharp. I think that's him trying to compartmentalise the fact that he has fallen in love with the club and he doesn't, let's be honest, Jose didn't care whether he won. Well, he did care if he didn't win the final, but ultimately, come the end of his career, he won't care about the period at Tottenham. Same with Conte.
He's still quite bitter about it.
I think if you look at managers in our last 30 years, or let's say since the League Cup, that would genuinely sit there at the end of their career and go, it breaks my heart I didn't win anything with Tottenham. Pochettino, Harry Redknapp, and no, I don't think so. AVB Show didn't look back really after they left. And the other one I think is Ange. I think he's truly felt so at home and so connected with it. You can kind of see after a loss. We've seen managers brush stuff off. We've seen managers be disappointed or make sarcastic comments. When you see him after an interview, after a game of loss, especially the Palace one, if you looked at him, he had the same disappointment and the same pain in his face and in his eyes as what Spurs fans had. And I think he's kind of become, he's very much, when you listen to like players like Joe Hart, like I say, who've worked with him and people that work with him at other clubs, and they've all said he tries to keep the work and the personal separate. I think that line's become a bit more blurred for him. I think he's become a lot more emotionally invested in Tottenham.
I'm sorry, this is the biggest job of his career, really. Like,
I don't agree with you. I don't disagree with you. But this is what I'm saying. I think he's become.
That's why he's so like. I don't know whether we can come to conclusions for another club because I don't see that from him a lot. Like, I don't get that vibe. I got that vibe from, like, obviously Redknapp, Poch, of course.
But this is what I'm saying. I think for him,
Joel,
when you
Joel,
spoke,
I know you went on enough, but Joel freaking loved Tottenham.
When you spoke the other week about his animation on the touchline and stuff, I think we see that from managers. But this is my point. 2 seconds on that. When you love a job and you're invested in a job and you're passionate about what you do at your job, that shows in a certain way. When you're emotionally invested in something, that shows in a different way. And like if you see Unai Emery, for example, react at Villa, he reacts the same way at Villa as he does at as he did at PSG or Villarreal or whatever. He loves it because he loves his job. When you see the way Ange was at Celtic and you see his mannerisms, he reacted in the same kind of way. He was passionate because it was his job. You know, he was happy in key moments, etc. When you look at how he is for Spurs, there's almost the same kind of like tongue-biting nervousness that we Spurs fans have. And I think
for me,
if it was just down to his job security, then I would say it would have only been the last 6-8 weeks. But he's been like that pretty much since day dot of coming in. Even his first game at Tottenham, he looked overwhelmed. Not overwhelmed is the wrong word. He looked like truly privileged to be in that dugout. And I think it's been a long time since we've had a manager who's really felt that way.
I kind of, in some ways, agree with you and disagree with you. So I agree with you in the sense that he will be privileged because, let's be honest, this is the biggest job of his career.
Yeah.
And he keeps talking about how he never thought he'd manage in England. At the same time, I do think your insecurity point is massive because, like you said, he bats off the press and in deep down, I think that's part of the problem because
he feels like they're attacking him almost because he doesn't feel he deserves to be here.
Innately, he and the reason why I say this is because I watch those. I don't watch his press conferences anymore. I'm kind of bored of him. I don't really resonate with him like other people do. I know some of our fan base resonate with him very well. I'm like I said, the three managers I named off, Poch, Chol, and Redknapp. Especially Redknapp was my guy.
Yeah, I love Redknapp. Yeah.
I resonate with him a lot because I liked his honesty. I liked the way he came across, and I loved Redknapp before he came to Tottenham. So for me, it was like yes,
it was easy, yeah,
yeah. But I know a lot of people love Poch more. Anyway, everyone has their preferences, and a lot of people even like Joel even more than that. But anyways, for me, it's like he needs to get over this insecurity, not me, not the fans, not the players. And maybe if he had more confidence in himself and more secure about, look, I do deserve this job. I'm not saying he does, by the way, but himself. Yeah. He feels that way, like he's more confident about it. Because my dad even made a comment about this. So he again watches very little with his post-match stuff, but he'll watch like stuff on Sky Sports or be in TNT, especially after lose games because he just wants to see what the manager acts like. Because he doesn't like him either. So he looks down a lot, and I don't know if you know about body language and stuff. When you look down a lot, it shows less confidence. Like obviously, it's more confident if you look at someone in the eye when you're talking because
I just find it really awkward personally.
Right. I don't mean like staring. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Like,
sorry,
but like Ant looks down a lot, and it's like he doesn't really believe in himself. And he's in other interviews. I think he did with Mark Schwartz or something. He said, "I never thought I'd be managing this club." Blah blah. You know,
the couple that he's done with,
and I didn't think an Australian, even though he's Greek, would be managing an English club, and how where I came from. And like I'm saying, he's openly admitted it. But then that's fine. I've no issues with that. It means that in that respect, I actually respect him more for that. But then
you still can't let it impact your job. You still need to. You're here now, so you obviously do deserve it. The club, Tottenham, felt you deserve it enough to offer you the job.
So, like what I'm saying is, but you've got.
Do you think that plays a part then?
Like,
do you think because deep down he knows that the club are taking a whim on him because they couldn't get what they wanted? It's like, okay, let me ask you this question. Let's say you're on Tinder and this girl's got 3 dates lined up and you're the third one.
Thank you. Right. Literally
and
I'll let you land.
And the two other guys, something goes up or they go on a date with somebody else and then they cancel the second date with that person. And they go on a date with you and they go, look, the other two guys have been on dates with other people before me and they preferred them. So I'll just go on a date with you. I would rather go on him. He's a bit more my type, but I'm going to go on a date with you. You would feel 10 times more pressure to overcompensate, to prove that you should have been choice number one and not choice number three. I think there is that psychological part in him. And I think as well, he wants to not just grow Australians playing in England, but Australians managing in England as well. And to be the first one to do it, there is so much pressure on that not you or nor I could fathom. And I think people forget that a little bit. Bearing in mind, if you guys remember if you guys have seen any of the clips from when he took over the Australian national team, his own people were sitting there and doubting him, saying, "You're not good enough. You'll never do it."
Really?
And he proved them wrong, and not just proved them wrong, but blew them out of the water in the process. So the next challenge came up, and he went to Japan, and again took a struggling club and won them a title. Then went to Celtic, who had recently lost the league to Rangers, got them to win, over, I believe it was like a record points tally or something. It was there.
I wouldn't go on a date. That's just me. But anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, but
I understand your analogy, because the guy by default would be insecure because he'd be like, I'm like
exactly. I'm third choice, so now I've got to prove why I should have been first choice. And every time one little thing goes wrong, or every time a player doesn't listen to an instruction, you can see the goal in the back of your mind, going to be going, "Is that why I was third choice then?"
Yeah.
And I think we need.
I don't know, but that's something again he needs to get over. Not me, not you.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Not even the club, not even the players.
But I do think the fans need to have a bit more respect for the external pressures, and I know he tries to outblock it. And he said actually in an interview with Michael Bridge a while ago about the fact that he hears the stuff from the outside and he does his best to block it in because he does believe in himself. But I do think deep down, based on what we've suggested, if we deep dive, if we were his undercover therapist or something, I think deep down some of these things would come through, because he is an older manager. He has only just made it to the Premier League. He has had to graft and grind his way there. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think in the end he probably will be successful, is because someone who has an easier route will never understand the importance, the value, the lessons, the heartache, the stress and the pressure of going through a difficult journey to get to where they've got to. Someone who's handed it on a silver platter, someone who's born into that point or whatever. Like for example, so obviously you look at Premier League football players now. If I went and got my FA coaching license tomorrow, and then I got up to a non-league club, and then I got offered a professional club, League Two, and then Championship, and then eventually became a Premier League manager, my journey would be 10 times more educational and 10 times more emotional and 10 times more impactful than an ex-Premier League football player who got a job in the Championship straight away because they were an ex-Premier League football player. Exactly. So I think when we compare it to other managers who maybe played for bigger clubs, because what you got to remember as well, Pep Guardiola was Barcelona player,
I know,
then Barcelona B coach, then Barcelona A coach. Mourinho was Barcelona Youth Academy, and then into Porto.
I think you mentioned another club before that.
Yeah, it was a lower Portuguese league club, and then into Porto, and then into Chelsea. If you look at, Ancelotti, what he managed, 2 Series C sides, then Juventus, and then went off from there. And a lot of these managers had good enough playing careers to get them 4 or 5 steps up the ladder for their first job. Because Ange didn't have that level of playing career, he's had to work from the very bottom step to get to where he's got to. And I think this is why he looks a bit more relaxed than anybody like us would be in that situation, because he's been through the grit and the grind, and the grit and the grind really does make pressure really does make diamonds. And I'm somebody who actually hates pressure, but pressure does make diamonds. Pressure helps you grow. Pressure helps you learn. Pressure helps you develop, whether you like it or not. And because Ange's had to go through so much more pressure than a lot of people to get to where he's got to, and he's taken 20 years longer to get to those positions, I think we as fans, and I'm not saying we can't criticise his decisions, and I'm not saying you can't want him in or want him out, but I think what we do need to reflect on, especially since having this conversation, and actually it'll lead perfectly into next topic once we've done a Peninsula City game, what we need to realise is he's been through a hell of a lot to get to where he's got to. And whether you think he's earned it or not, the fact of the matter is 99% of people had the same journey as him would not get to where he is today. The step before that.
Again, it's all down to him, Dave. I don't think that makes him, by default, he's going to be successful just because he went through the grind.
No, it doesn't. But what I do think is we just need to maybe be a bit more patient, because someone who's been to the very, very bottom and knows what it's like will understand that actually like Spurs fans now, there'll be some Spurs fans, younger Spurs, like, oh, this is the bottom, this is the trenches. They won't remember losing to a Negredo hat-trick, a 6-0 back-to-back against City, or being battered 5-0 by Liverpool and John Flanagan scoring.
I've seen worse than this, by the way. Anyway.
Whatever, or you know what I mean, or being bad by Arsenal, or St. Tottenham's Day every day for 13 years, or whatever the fuck it was. Like, so many Spurs fans will be saying, this is the trenches, this is the bottom, because they've never experienced lower than that. What we need to remember is Ange has experienced lower than that, and lower than that, and lower than that. So if anybody could drag you out of that, it's someone who's been through all those stages. That doesn't forsake for ability, however.
And the problem is, I do think he needs to get over this insecurity. Now you brought it up, like...
I think now we brought it up like this, I think we've realised that actually it's a lot more potent than what we first were thinking when I first made the point.
Like, I'm on board with managers to show more confidence and passion where it's on the touchline. I don't see that with him. Like you said, it shows nervousness. And I'd rather he was more calm in press conferences rather than being so batting back the media.
Almost sharp and aggressive because he feels like people are out to get him.
To reverse what he does in the press conferences onto the pitch. I'm not saying exactly.
And what he does on the pitch to the press conferences.
Because for me, calmness, showing confidence. Like if someone tries to test you, I'm going to use that word in context. Then if you stay firm and like calm, then it shows that you're not phased. So if you ask questions, about winning the trophy in the second season, for example, rather than saying
your guard's backed up because I can't say that I don't want to win a trophy, so I have to be confident. I have to force the issue that I want to win something.
And saying it, just be like, yeah, obviously we'd love to win something, and I've done it before, but we'll just see what happens, and rather being calm about it. But the way he bats back the media, it's like they said, he's not like he's got confidence in himself. Like,
yeah.
And I know it's a lot of mental, and I'm not his therapist. Like maybe he's getting one. Well, we just spoke about 10 minutes about his therapy, but like that's all him. Like, and I think that would probably help us to more. I'd have more confidence in him if he acted, like I said, the opposite.
I think it's definitely pointed. I think the whole conversation, and I think you'd even agree for yourself, I think it kind of made me view our current situation in a bit different of a light.
I'm not responsible for him to be like this.
No, I agree with you. He has a responsibility to go out there and fix it. And I think for him, the other thing is if he doesn't do it at Spurs, then he'll just be another number. He'll just be another name. Whereas if he does it at Spurs, okay, let's say he doesn't win the league, but let's say he wins the FA Cup this year, right?
Yeah.
No matter what, because I look at the situation West Ham fans have with Moyes, and I think it's despicable. I think the way they treated him was, you can criticise his football and you can criticise his decisions, but the outright disrespect from some managers or from some fans, we lost that game, Prague doesn't mean anything. Are you having a fucking laugh? 65 years they went without a trophy.
I mean, I was Moyes I'm not a West Ham fan, but what I'm saying is I didn't agree with the sacking. Like, I thought it was...
And even not the sacking, but I just think the overall disrespect... You can criticise his play style and not want him to be a manager.
What he had,
but exactly, but disrespecting what he achieved, I think, is outright just outrageous.
I would have taken that.
I think what Ange is kind of feeling is, if I do this, this is the ultimate... I took a club that they never said was possible, and I did it. And if he doesn't do it...
It's up to him to convince us. I'm not going to sit here and be patient. Like, he needs to go out and do this himself.
I disagree. I think it's up to him to convince himself. Truly believe.
As a consequence, that'll be us.
Okay, so let me tell you. So, obviously, some of you guys might have seen on my social media, I started running again last week. Actually, it's the day we're recording this. I've got my first proper programmed run tomorrow, which I'm scared shitless for. And me and my mate have made an agreement that by the time I'm 30, we will run a marathon together. Now, right now, do I believe that? Absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
But once I get back to running 5K comfortably, and then I can do 10K comfortably, and then I can do a marathon comfortably, and I do a half marathon comfortably. As that goes, and as I get closer, I will start to believe more and more and more. However, sometimes that first third is the absolute hardest because you have to go through that and dedicate to it and stick with it, whether you believe it or not.
In managerial,
you've got to fake it till you make it almost.
With Pep, for example, when I watch his press conferences, right, he's very like laughy, coffee, laid back. And when they asked about the Premier League, I think this season, he was like, "Oh, so Pep, you've lost 4 in a row, blah blah." and he cracked some joke with them, saying, "Oh, you know what? We might start to win one." And stuff. Like what I'm saying is, you can see with it when he watches Premier League, he's relaxed, he's confident. I mean, even I could look at Klopp; he was similar. Arteta's a bit here and there. Sometimes confident. Sometimes I think he's a bit off his head a bit too arrogant. Yeah. So like what I'm saying is, like they come across more relaxed, and even Arteta, I could argue because a lot of people want to make this comparison. Arteta's a younger manager; he's had less experience in the game, and he comes across as more confident than Ange.
But I think that's the point. Is like Arteta has.
He should.
No, but this is my point. Arteta hasn't had to go through that journey, so for him, he's confident because he hasn't seen any real failures up until last season when they bottled the league. Yes, bottled the league. Arteta hadn't seen any managerial failures. Where Ange had seen the Australian national team and being backed up against the wall, and Ange had seen the bullshit with, when he first moved to Japan and all. So Ange has had to deal with his back against the wall his whole career. Whereas when Arteta came into Arsenal, everyone's Pep's number 2, we've got Pep. Like the instant reaction was overwhelming support, which carried him through that rough period. No,
I think Arteta was a bit different. Like a lot of us fans are Arteta out there.
No, but they are now. But in that very first period, he's Pep's number 2. We're going to have like that. That was what I saw.
People were saying that he was just putting out the cones. That's the jokes I used to hear.
No, I saw enough to suggest that they thought they were getting the next Pep Guardiola.
Really, I think. So it's not really quite a few. I think it's quite 50-50.
Yeah, but either way, there was more support for him in those moments.
Arteta out from day one. It's still Arteta out now because they just don't run him. But what I'm saying, I thought Arteta would have more to prove really because he's his first job. He was Pep's assistant. It depends how you can view it.
No, but I would say if your first job's Arsenal and it doesn't work, then you go, but I didn't do it because of a lack of experience. And people will give you a bit of leeway with that. If you go in and it works, then Barcelona's next, then Real Madrid. No, maybe not.
I think this is all stuff we talk about. But this is again that's down to Ange to do it himself. Yeah. Right? It's just. For me, it's...
Ange, listen, I'll leave my number in the description. Drop me a call and we'll have a chat, yeah? I love you. No, I'm joking. Just quickly then, score prediction for City quickly, and then we need to move on to something else quickly.
3-1 City.
I'm going to say 2-1 Tottenham because it would be the most Spursy thing in the world to go there and get a result.
Unfortunately, City are due a victory, so I'm going 2-1 City.
Yeah, I'm not putting any expectation on the game, if I'm being honest. I don't think it's a good marker to judge anything on. I don't think people need to go on his backs if we lose, unless it's 5 or 6-0, because it's the first game after the international break. Got a bunch of injuries. It's Man City away. They haven't won in ages. So I think I'm not going to judge him. And the next game after that's Roma at home. That's where I want to convince him sort of 2 or 3-0 win.
Roma haven't been good this season anyway.
No. So. And then we'll build from there. Just quickly then, so obviously it's November. It's Men's Mental Health Month. I know we both struggle both individually with our mental health problems. A lot of mine are kind of outside factors. A lot of personal stuff happened. Obviously, I've not myself personally been truly the same since my dad left. Obviously Ramon passing away, a lot of things like that. So I think the biggest tips I'm going to give people are, number one, even if you don't want to, make sure you have some sort of socialization, have some sort of outside communication, because talking to people, even if it's just a 10-minute conversation, will help to make you not feel alone. Number two, love yourself. And I know it's hard and I know it's difficult, but care for yourself and treat yourself to that milkshake, or treat yourself to takeaway that evening, or just love yourself and care about yourself, because ultimately the person you can rely on the most, I'm not going to say the only person you can rely on, because there are other people you can rely on in your life, but the person you will rely on most is yourself, and you need to love and take care of yourself and protect yourself. There's only one version of you. When you're gone, you go extinct. And if I gave you a dinosaur egg right now and said, this is the last one, treat it like an endangered species, you would treat it with the love and the care and respect, and you would protect it and you would nurse it and you would look after it and you would give it everything it needed to be happy and healthy. You are that rare egg. You are that rare, that one of a kind, and you will go extinct eventually. And you need to protect yourself and love yourself and respect yourself and care about yourself as much as possible. And if that means that you go on a run once a week, if that means you sit there and stream Football Manager, or that means you sit there making a Spurs podcast, shout me out for the idea. Or whether it means, you buy something you've always wanted to buy, or whatever it might be, protect yourself, love yourself. Like the day I'm recording this, I got up late, I had a lay-in, I drove to a town near where I live to go and look at reptiles for a mate of mine. We drove back, dropped the car, got on the train, went to St Albans. At like 2:45, we had a late lunch in one of my favourite Italian restaurants that I've been trying to get my mate into for ages, and he couldn't get it into because it was always closed. It was always busy, too busy in the evening. And he's a lastminute.com person, so we'd never book it because it'd be a last minute decision. And he absolutely loved it. We then went for some cocktails, and then we came home. I'm not going to talk about what happened on the journey home because that's why I've got no energy left. But yeah, you've got to look after yourself. You've got to love yourself. You've got to protect yourself. And I understand that it's difficult and it might be hard hitting. But what people need to realise is there's no point sitting there and saying that I'm lonely, I never have anyone, and not sending any texts, not making any phone calls, not making the effort to communicate with people. Networking works both ways, and not everyone can spot when you're not doing okay. So when you know you're not doing okay, tell people, reach out to those people, and they will love you and they will support you and they will care for you. And if they don't, drop me or Harry a message, and we'll tell them to stop being fucking knobheads. And that's another thing. Our DMs are always open, whether it's Twitter, whether it's whatever social media platform it will be. Like one of the guys in my stream the other day, we were having a catch up, and he was asking how I've been, and we were having a general catch up about life. So do right by yourself, protect yourself, love yourself, exercise well, eat well, drink plenty of water, get a good night's sleep. And that's honestly 50% of it. It really is 50% of it. And once you get beyond that point, treat yourself, spoil yourself, love yourself, surround yourself with people that give you energy, that give you positivity, that give you love and support, that you would do for them what they would do for you, and life will be 10 times better. If you're still struggling, there's so many places you can reach out to. Make sure you guys do that. Like I say, we're available if either side that you need to. For those of you guys that didn't follow the podcast or didn't follow my social media last year, because obviously we hadn't started until March, last June, July time, my dad left. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I put on a brave face and bit my tongue for that. And then come November last year, it hit me like a train wreck. I got to where I was drinking every night. I was going home, going to the pub, spending £100 drinking, coming home, passing out, going to sleep because it was the only way I could sleep. And then at one point, it got so bad that on a Wednesday night, I came home, I drank an entire bottle of vodka. I passed out on the kitchen floor. I woke up in a pile of my own sick at 4 o'clock in the morning. My mate helped get me some water, got in the shower, went to sleep. I went to work the next day. 2 days later, I did the same thing again. And then I woke up the day after that, went into work, told my boss I was struggling, admitted that I needed help and support. And now I'm fixed my relationship with alcohol, which is great. Not my relationship with my dad, but that's not the point. That's his fault, not mine. I really gained back control of my life. And my life's not where I want it to be, but I'm slowly working towards that. And I think having the right people around you that can positively motivate you and help you and support you make the world of difference. Have you got anything you want to add to that?
For me, I suffered with depression like a few times in my life. Once was probably during secondary school. I think it was the first time, for a number of reasons anyway. But that was like, I guess a smaller version of it. And then I suffered from it at university. And that was kind of circumstantial because I was living with people I didn't really want to live with. And eventually I moved out, but it did take me like a while to recover that year. Because basically people living with horrible living conditions. It was really bad. But then for me, the biggest one was during lockdown. I know you talk about social stuff. I was like almost suicidal during lockdown in November 2020. So I had like really bad depression. It's partly because obviously, like you mentioned, like the gym and stuff. Like the gym was closed. We couldn't really socialize with anyone, and I'm quite a sociable person. There was lots of, I was just pretty much by myself.
You were isolated, yeah.
I just moved out. I hated lockdown in general because I thought, why are we having a lockdown? Like nothing bad's really happening. I was working a very high intense job in the sense of like I barely had any breaks. I was working quite long hours, and I was quite new to the job during that time period. Like I'd only been 3 to 6 months in there before lockdown, so that didn't help either because obviously, and by consequence, it knocked my confidence a lot. I was actually diagnosed with depression during that time period, like officially by a doctor, and the reason I bring this up is because I actually saw a therapist, and it was for about 6 months to a year. I can't remember exactly when I stopped. And that's why I kind of advise people like you should talk to someone if you don't have like, or you don't think, I don't heard someone wrong, if you don't think talking to your friends is enough and you can't really like open up to them to like sort of level, because there's obviously some things that we don't all talk about, right? Then you're better off talking to like a therapist because obviously it's confidential, and it really did help actually. Like it really helped. Also, I'd advise stuff like from like individual standpoint. Obviously, they said going to the gym, like you can go to the gym now, but in that time period, I couldn't. I'd say like I tried watching shows I really liked that were quite light-hearted, not anything serious, like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and stuff like that, like Friends or something, because it did help partly for like But what I'm saying with stuff like depression, mental health, it's actually kind of like a journey. I describe it like that because some days you'll feel like shit, some days you'll feel good, and then by default, by the end of the journey, let's say, I mean, you always want a journey anyway, but by the end of the recovery, let's say, you'll end up having more good days than bad days, and eventually the bad days will kind of stop. But it's not like a, flick of a finger, you're fixed. Like it actually takes like a really long time. And obviously during that time period, I was like the lowest I've ever been. So from like November 20 to like middle of 2021, maybe a bit longer. And like as a party was reasonable because I was like socially isolated because obviously we had lockdowns and stuff, and it wasn't suited to my personality, I guess, and just the way I had life, because I used to go out every weekend. I used to go to the gym like 3 times a week. That went. I couldn't really use my flat because obviously we had like, you couldn't see people. So for me, it was, partly because of that, you felt like alone, if that makes sense. But, and also, like I said, the combination with the job. So for me, it was sort of circumstantial, but also the doctor diagnosed me with like chronic depression in the sense that he said that during certain times of the year, like you'll feel a bit more down.
Seasonal depression.
Seasonal depression, that's the one. So for me, it's like October for some reason, or something like that. That's not because of Tottenham, by the way. Even though we joke about that, like depression with Tottenham is like nothing really. It's just like a joke, but this is like serious stuff. So for me, it's obviously talk to people, but also if you want to see someone, don't feel, what's the word?
Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel self-conscious about it. It's completely normal.
See someone, because I was quite open about it, saying I want to see someone like an actual therapist, a professional person, because it actually does really help. And because you have someone to talk to like in confidence for like an hour a week, I was like an hour or so a week, and because you can openly say what your issues are, let's say. And I had someone who did with like spiritually, and also like, there's different types of psychotherapy and psychology. Spiritually, and there's another word I can't remember that they used. She did a bit of both. So like it really, really helped. So you shouldn't be afraid to see someone. Obviously, your friends are like a massive help. And that did help partly, but for me, it was mainly just that I saw someone at the time.
I think the other thing is interesting you mentioned about lockdown as well, actually, because while I didn't feel in the moment I struggled with the isolation, when we first opened up again, I had this uncontrollable, overwhelming anxiety every time I left the house. So there were other contributing factors towards it. Certain people contributed towards it with things they were saying and doing. I'm not going to go into that, but it got to the point where when I'd go outside, my whole body would flare up in the kind of like a heat rash almost. My body would go uncontrollably itchy and red, and I've got photos of it on my phone still. I'm not going to show you guys, trust me, you don't want to see it, but I'd go uncontrollably red and itchy, and I'd literally have to run home. I would be stood there in the shop, literally scratching my whole body because it would be uncontrollable. It was like a rat was running up and down my skin, biting me constantly. And it was uncontrollable. And it took me so long to be able to go back outside again and be able to walk without that. And sometimes it'd last a minute, sometimes it'd last 5 minutes, sometimes it'd last 10 minutes. Sometimes it'd be just walking back up the hill on the way home, and then it would go, I struggle to remember a time like that now because it's been so long since I've been back to that. But in that moment, I truly sat there and said to myself, what if I'm like this forever? What if I can't go to work? What if I can't go outside? What if I can't go shopping? What if I can't meet new people? What if I can't be who I know I am?
I couldn't concentrate because I was constantly like, I don't know what the word is, how to describe it. Like my brain was constantly thinking, I guess.
Yeah.
And like my head didn't feel right, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also, you know, a lot of contributing factors. But even when I did leave the job, because I did leave the job in the end, I still took like months and months to recover, even when I did the less stressful job, because it was just, when it's that serious, you can't really run away from it. And like I said, it's just a journey. Like people watching it.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing actually, because when I described the heat rashes I was having, or the rashes I was having, was I couldn't run away from it. I had to go through that to deal with it. And honestly, it was horrible. Some of the worst times of my life. But I think I'm 10 times a better person mentally now.
Yeah.
Because of it. And
I agree with that in terms of myself as well.
The numbers for men's mental health, and I don't care whether people say, oh, you're a man, keep it to yourself, is the biggest load of fucking bullshit ever. Me and Harry have a section after each podcast where we sit and talk and we catch up and whatever every week after we record. And it's to check in with each other and make sure we're both okay and what's going on in each other's lives and things like that. And it's just, I think the biggest thing to realize is life is so different for everybody. Everyone deals with things in different ways. Everyone goes through different things. And recently I've opened up to some of my friends about some of the abuse that my mum put me through. And actually one of the things, I'm not going to tell you what it was because it's not something I want to talk about publicly at the moment, but I told them one of the things that I was put through. And one of my mates turned around and looked at me, his jaw dropped, and he said, I thought that was just a figure of speech. I didn't know people actually did that. And I'll tell Harry what it is after the recording, but he was genuinely jaw dropped. He said, how you aren't some raging psychopath with everything you went through, I don't know. And I think it stands to reason that as much as I wish I didn't have the experience that I had in that regard and didn't have the trauma and the mental weight that I still live with every day, I think one of the reasons I'm so empathetic, one of the reasons that if someone called me at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd sit there and answer until they felt okay. One of the reasons that, I do stuff for other people, and one of the reasons I make sure every employee, I buy them a cake on their birthday at work and come in singing happy birthday in front of all the customers, and every reason why I make the effort for people and I try to support people as much as possible is because if I've been through all that stuff, what do I gain by being an arsehole? What do I gain by not being the person that other people need in those moments? And actually, I saw something that the other day, actually, is a brilliant quote that said, be the person now that you needed when you had no one. And that's the kind of person I am for everybody in my life at any point possible. And
I agree with that sort of statement.
That's the kind of, you've got to channel all the negativity and all the things that have happened to you and outpour it into making other people not feel alone. If you felt alone in those moments where you feel isolated, where you feel down, where you're struggling, where you're coming home, you don't want to eat, you don't want to sleep, you don't want to do anything, you just want to go to sleep and cry yourself to bed. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you get through it and when you come out the other side and when you're 10 times stronger, make sure that you do what you can so that nobody else feels the way you felt. And if everybody as a society lived their life like that, we would be 10 times better people. Life would be 10 times better. And life as a whole, society as a whole, will be so much a better and healthier and happier place. And I think that's the best way to end it, really. If you guys need us, reach out. The socials are all below. As always, obviously, like I say, we like I said last week, we're going to do the Christmas and the New Year's episode, and there's some stuff I need to talk to Harry about off camera before I talk about it on camera. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it, really.
Yeah.
City on Saturday. Let's hope we win. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review. We appreciate you so much. Take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and we'll catch you next week. Come on, you Spurs!